These two wonderful men now, the moment they had the last person on board, the Coast Guard was there and says, hey, didn't we say don't touch? He said, yes, but then the people will be dead. Well, okay, now you have them on board. Bring them to Libya. For Tunisian fishermen, it is impossible at that time to sail into Libyan waters first, as a fisher already. Then to bring African refugees or shipwrecked to Libya, everybody knows what's going to happen there. And third, and the most important reason for them to refuse this order was that it is far away, although you're very close to the safe port of Lampedusa, so they refused. They said, no way, we're bringing them now. And it's in the maritime law. I brought you some information on this. And it says, it is an obligation to save people, yes, and then to bring them to a place of safety in the name of the dignity of the saved. Wow, very good. But this is not what's happening usually. So, they bring them in there. Then, not only the Coast Guard, but one of these huge battleships shows up. It takes a huge group and it crosses straight in front of this tiny little fisher boat, overloaded in the sea. This is not a gesture. This is an attempt of murder. My brave fishermen, they keep the course and they make it into the harbor. They get arrested immediately. The people are meant to be brought to whatsoever camp or so, but 10 of them, and there was among them a pregnant lady, had to be brought by helicopter to Sicily. She delivered the baby 2 days later. And these two were meant to be brought to the prison. It's a routine, but wait a second. They said, wait a second here. So they took a crane and the fisher boat out of the water and they smashed it on the quay. See, this is, you are not going to sail anywhere. We organized later on some help for them, assistance. So, okay, now this was one of our saved. The people were brought at first to a camp, this San Benedetto, and then afterwards, as I said, deported to Africa. Why I use this expression, it's very harsh, deported, because it's just not interesting whether they really come from a country, whether you would bring them, it's Africa. So you bring them there and you will find some embassy issuing the papers needed. Maybe with some money, and this is what happens. So this guy now is one of the rescued, and he was a very shy one, so we didn't talk about it, but he's figuring on many pictures. This is by coincidence. So he died then 1 year later at the very spot in front of Lampedusa, just off Lampedusa, with 20 other people in his boat, because he made it again back to the coast, and he said, well, you have experience, so you'd be the captain. The captain gets the passage for free or so. So he was, and then had contact briefly by mobile phone, and he said, well, we have a problem, the engine's down, and so then they disappeared. So, but the difference is we know some of these people. So I wrote a book about all this. It's in the library, but it's in German, unfortunately. And I dedicated it to our dear friend here. So what could we do? We really got a shock. So we founded an activist group. We called it Borderline Europe because we wanted to know now what's going on. We had so shocking experiences and so many things, and nobody was interested in what we had gone through, because in public and in the media and so it was really played like, oh look, these idiots, there might be something, you know, now they're on trial, look at them. It was very bad also for the organization. So we founded Borderline Europe, and the European Union founded Frontex. It's a coincidence. Frontex, it's from French, frontière extérieure, so it's outside. Libertas, Securitas, Justitia, you know? Latin. This is freedom, security, and justice. So, and this is like a self-description of the European Union. European Union is the space of freedom, security and justice, and Frontex is there to protect the space. But protecting how and against what. So what they do is identify routes. For me, among the elderly here, Paul, I have to say, I grew up, I was born in '60, and so I went to school in Germany in the Cold War times, and so we saw a lot of those maps, like this, showing us the danger coming from the east here, from Russia, but it was tanks expected one day to arrive here, Fulda Gap, you remember? For some reason they knew exactly where they would come one day. The Fulda Gap was a NATO expression, well they never came, I'm happy to say. But how this scenario is now translated into something, no tanks involved, this is just the danger brought by illegals, aliens, howsoever you call them, crossing into Europe without an invitation or visa. So, yeah. And then you can see also that the borderlines here are quite different from, let's see, Australia, they're really lucky. I mean, they have a huge island, and if you want to protect it now, seen from the perspective of those who are in charge of securing, it's relatively easy. Europe is not the case. It's amazing where you would find these European external borders. It is here around, in the middle of Europe, around former Yugoslavia. You see it up here, it's a little enclave. It's a former Königsberg, Russia. Then you have here a part of Europe on African soil. You know these cities, we come to that later on. And there are even external borders of Europe running through the Indian Ocean, Madagascar, Comore Islands, yeah, for example, or other places. So this is really something difficult. Now this is from the toolbox that Frontex organizes. These are the units that each member state brings in order to make Frontex operational. This is a German Bundespolizei helicopter based in Malta. This is a Greek vessel from the Coast Guard. You can see the cannon on the top. This was from the times where they still had money for the fuel. And then here you have a tiny little Maltese unit working together in a coordinated activity of Malta. This is something I found with the BBC, where from the BBC website, how they translated what they understood that Frontex was doing here on the African coast in joint operations with third countries, and they translated it immediately into a picture of war. And that's what it is. You know, because the order for these units is to stop boats and to divert them. Stop and divert them. Now think about what kind of boat is sailing there, and now what kind of unit is trying to stop and to divert them. This is just taking it from the technical side. It is unbelievable. There's no worse tool than this one to deal with that. Because these are weak and slow, and this is hard, and it's very fast. The warships are designed for velocity. So below a certain speed, they can't even maneuver. So when it comes to a problem, let's say, at sea, they are not able to do anything. A huge ship like this cannot maneuver and rescue people. By the way, they don't have the equipment. Until today, the Coast Guard in these regions there has no equipment to save shipwrecked. Although it's cheap, but there's no attention. Now let's have a look at what is provided in terms of technical equipment in order to support the Frontex activities. What you see here more or less is already working, operational, and it is a multi-billion euro market worldwide. So many European companies also are taking part. So you see there's a second European agency, the ESA, the space agency, By the way, do you know where our famous Ariane 7 rockets, which country of Europe is it, and which continent? Where do we start? Where we launch our rockets? You don't know? It's French Guinea. French Guinea, which is a part of Europe, and the continent is South America, just to give you an example. And there also people try to make it into Europe and so on. But what they do here, they have all these, radars and things. Satellites here, just briefly, this one, optical monitoring of suspicious behavior. As I told you, this is the open sea. So, nobody should stop you from sailing wherever you want, whoever you are, theoretically. But now, what is suspicious behavior? Very easy. The moment you turn your ship towards European waters, you're immediately suspicious and you will be tracked from there. And this is why every of these tiny little boats is detected and seen, but there's not really an effort to help, to assist them. Okay, now, I love this one. Optical monitoring. Okay, we are not against optical monitoring, but what are they doing there? They're just looking into these huts. In my times at school, we would have called this spying. But nowadays it's not the case. Be calm, it's just having a look in the name of our security. Okay. It's about these people coming in waves, let's say, and especially when the Arab Spring started, many of these Tunisian young men took the opportunity to sail over there. It was not really that they were looking for a brighter future. It was just the moment they were able to do it. They did it after they had overthrown their regime in a peaceful way. Now, what does Frontex, at the very moment, the risk analysis unit here, they immediately see, oh. Now this is very close. And what we did before, it was that Europe would pay for all these regimes billions of euros to keep them back. Don't let them sail over the sea. So now, when the regime collapses or is overthrown, it's no longer working. So they were really panicking. And if I don't know if you have seen it or heard about it, it was Italy declaring the state of emergency, France and Denmark closed their borders, Austria even came close to it. It was amazing. Just because a few of these guys made it to Lampedusa, and instead of welcoming them there, saying, hey, what you guys did in the name of democracy is amazing, but now let's discuss about what's possible here. Yeah? No. They were immediately considered as a threat to Europe, and you see that the risk here is not at all the risk for people of drowning out there. It is the risk that they would arrive. Yeah? So, for the numbers, we could come to it, but here you can see why did they go down? Because Europe had contract with Libya especially, and then also with Tunisia, to keep the people back. And they were treated there in a way that you wouldn't imagine. So, now this is a joke, but it's a German. Yeah. Maybe if some of the German-speaking could explain it. You could explain it? Somebody? Could you explain it? Translate it into... The Costa Concordia. Have you heard about it? Like a crazy captain. Yeah. So, I think 32 tourists were dying. By the way, tourists are migrants. Yeah. They are outside of their home country. They're traveling somewhere, but they're not considered as migrants in Europe. They're just tourists. So, now it says, again, boat people stranded in Italy. And where is Frontex once you need them? Yeah? It's a bad joke. But if you remember how this case, and it was a bad, yes, 32 people I think died in this accident, but you would see in the media it was weeks and months, and you would have them reporting live from the tiny little harbor. At the same time, just a few kilometers over there, and this is now from the UN, about 1,200 people disappeared beneath the waves. So nobody cared about it. So this is why this is a very hard joke, but it's somehow. Because now this is what is not shown to the public. I give you a few of these and we can discuss about it, if it's right or not. This is from off the Canary Islands, where, and I'm just giving the data, this is coming from the authorities, and it's an estimate that only in this 1 year, 2006, up to 7,000 people disappeared or died off the Canary Islands only in 1 year. So now imagine how the whole picture would look for all over Europe. I just give you this one because it's, you don't have precise data because people are cruising with no papers, no lists, passenger list or so. Yeah, so you don't know. If a boat doesn't arrive, it's only those who know them from the, they should have been arrived because they started Tuesday and we went on Thursday. So this is now from pictures, it's a journalist who gave it to me. It is that the fishermen in Italy, for example, they have in their navigational systems, they mark certain places where there was where refugee boats sank with these symbols. And I personally talked to 4 fishermen in 4 different countries who brought with the net things to the surface that they really didn't expect to be there. Yeah, this is remaining of human bodies. Now, at land, the cemeteries grow. This is also from the Canaries. I could show you other pictures from other places, but I use this one because I love it. How here currently there's a T missing, but I just imagine this is a German tourist, a teacher from Osnabrück. This is what I always say. I don't know why. Who died here in January. The Canary Islands have a very nice climate and maybe just hard cavial attack, so he died there. And would you believe it that he's a migrant himself, now he rests in peace now next to the Africano number 8, because people coming from the other side, they have no papers, they're not identified, you don't know. And if they are buried here in that way, it is at least giving them like a right of being buried like a human should be buried. This is not always the case. There are even worse places, and we have literally mass graves like here. I don't go into details, but you can find places